Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gail Carson, that's Gayle, Gail Carson 13 at gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter.
I have a very interesting guest for you today by the name of Nancy Giere. After a lifetime in the corporate training world, she is a custom training consultant who knows how businesses operate, and she isn't afraid to shake things up. Her unique perspective, combined with 25 plus years of experience, has empowered her with fresh insight and the industry's best kept secrets that she's ready to share with you. On a lifelong campaign against boring training, she uses the power of storytelling and lighthearted humor to create an engaging, fun, and interactive environment, masterfully interacting and intervening comedic humor with life lessons. Nancy, welcome to Women in Business.
Well, thank you. I'm really glad to be here today.
Well, I just found out, listeners, that Nancy and I roomed together 100 years ago at the National Speakers Convention. And, it's funny. My son always says to me, how can you room with somebody you don't know? But, at these conventions, you never see each other. You leave early in the morning, like at 6:30 or 7. You come back at night at 9:30 or 10, and then you're ready to just collapse into bed. So it works out really well. But anyway, Nancy, we are really happy to have you here today. And, it's interesting because I think that one of the things, the major things that you talk about, one of them is change. And I really would like to understand why change throws so much conflict into people's lives. Are they afraid of it? Do they not like it? Do people just like status quo? I mean, what's the philosophy behind it?
Well, I think what happens is we get used to living in a particular way, even if we're not happy with it. It's what we know. And when we move into what's unknown, I think that scares people and it shuts people down. If you think about what we've all gone through over the past year with the pandemic, what really made it even more challenging is it was loaded with uncertainty. There's certain types of changes that you make where you can kind of see what the outcome might be. I'm going to start a business. I'm going to start a new job. I'm going to get married. I'm going to get divorced. You can see what the end game potentially is going to look like. And last year, we couldn't see it, even though we always live with uncertainty, because who really knows how things are going to pan out. But when you have a sense of the direction and the possibility, that is more uplifting and encouraging, as opposed to when you really can't see, you have no idea what that end might look like. And
it's interesting that I'm looking at some of the things that are coming out about change now, and one of the things that I think is so interesting is the fact that a lot of people are talking about the change that's going to happen to their animals. In other words, what's going to happen to their animals who have had them home 24/7, and now they're going to go back to work, and the animal's going to be left alone. And what impact is this going to have on an animal? And I've often thought about that because I haven't traveled at all in a year and a half, and I used to travel 4 or 5 times a month. And I have a kitty cat who has never been alone because she always had my other cat who has since been put down. And now if I start to go somewhere, she's going to be without me for, let's say, a week. She's not going to know what to do. So what do you do in that situation with animals?
Well, I've been thinking about that quite a bit. So I'm based in San Francisco, but today I'm near Orlando, Florida, visiting family. And I got a miniature dachshund, Miss Moneypenny, during the pandemic. So she's only known life with me being with her most of the time. Now I'm fortunate when I do travel like this, that my daughter will take her in, and she has a big golden retriever that Penny gets to boss around for a few days. So she likes that. But I'm now starting to think, as I have more like even just normalcy of, she's not used to me even being gone for more than 2 hours. If I'm gone for an extended period of time, I put her in that type of an environment where she's very happy to have this other dog to play with. And I've noticed that a lot of the doggy daycare, I never thought I'd have a dog in daycare, but I do. What what they've set up now are these sort of these cage-free environments. And so I'm thinking, well, she's there all day, a couple days a week. If I board her, how different is it going to feel to her if she sleeps there? What is her sense of time? I'm not sure, but it's going to be a challenging for the animals, just for people to go to an office for 8 hours or 10 hours.
It is. It really is. So it's going to be, I think, a whole different viewpoint of how people review. And that's why I think a lot of people are saying, we don't want to go back to work in an office. We can get as much work done at home as possible.
Absolutely.
And, we like being around. Well, I think especially, too, if they don't have homeschooling. I think homeschooling really screwed a lot of people up, because it was difficult to homeschool your kids, do your work, and everything else. For those of us who are above the school-age child, that's a whole different ballgame. But
I can raise my hand to that.
If there's a lot, yeah, exactly. So what are some of the plans that you use to navigate change? I think that's what our listeners might be interested in.
Well, first of all, I believe it starts with having a goal. Kind of what do you want out of your life? What are you aiming towards? And sometimes change is thrust on us. It's very unexpected. And sometimes it's something that we plan for, that we want to do. So I think it's starting at that point. If it's oftentimes the changes that we make come from some sort of a pain point. I can't live like this anymore. I don't want this anymore. Or sometimes somebody gets very sick and they're dealing with a health issue that just came out of nowhere. And so the first thing is kind of to accept whatever the situation is, and then think about, well, where do I want to get to next? Having that in place is the first part. Then I think it's taking a look at, well, what are the steps that you need to take, which frankly sometimes can be overwhelming. And I think it's great to, first of all, just write down everything that you need to do. How are you going to get from A to B? If you're choosing to start a business, what are all the key elements that you need to put in place? Start there.
That brings up some interesting points, Nancy. I mean, I sometimes think people put a goal, let's just say a goal, whatever it is, an intention, whatever you call it, and they don't really think it through. I mean, so somebody says, I want to open my own business. Well, what is that business, and what is it going to take, and how much money are you going to need, and what kind of support are you going to need, and all of those. And I don't think people think that through. What have you found with your clients? What are the biggest issues they find when they say, okay, this is what I want to do, but they don't really think it through?
Well, and a lot of the people that I've been working with lately have this goal and this dream about wanting to convert everything into an online business, mostly online training programs, and have no sense of what it takes to do that, or somehow think they can have they get the Keebler elves on retainer. They're going to go into the hollow tree and they're going to come out and go, here's your course. Hey, we're ready to go. Yeah. And part of it is it's really to just step back and go, first of all, what's your purpose? Why do you even want to do this? Why do you want to make this shift? What is it going to, how is it going to impact you? How do you see your life being better? But to be practical about it. I think of what is the term, practical dreaming, to have a dream, right, to have a big goal, have a big idea, but then to step back and really look at what is it going to take to get here. Some people, they're like, well, God, I hate sales. Well, good luck having a business if you don't like to sell, right?
Well, not only that, a lot of times I think people create a business that really nobody wants. I mean, we were talking about online courses, and I know I made this mistake. And one of the philosophies is that you don't create an online course until you find people who want to buy it, because you may think it's the greatest thing since, Carter's liver pills,
Right.
but somebody else might say, hey, I have no interest in this at all. So when 8 people step up and say, yes, I will pay you for that and give you their dollars, that's when you create the course. And if you know what you're doing, it shouldn't take you that long to do it. So I think that kind of applies to going into any kind of business. Find out whether there is a need for it, whether people will pay for it,
Right.
and whether it's something that you can be successful at.
Right. It's that sweet spot of this is what I'm really good at, and people are willing to pay for it. I may be really
Exactly.
good. Well, for many years, I had a glass jewelry business, and I made this beautiful dichroic glass jewelry, and people were willing to pay for it. But over time, what started to happen is there was all this competition coming in from China and India, and I couldn't compete with those prices. So there was a point, this is what it's going to take me to do this. And I had the choice of either continuing to make work and sell it myself or going down the import road. And I didn't have it in me. I thought it was just going to take me too much to figure all of that out. And I thought I'm going to lose sort of the joy of creating. And if I'm not creating something beautiful that people want to buy, then, perhaps I've ridden this wave and it's time to go on and do something else, which I did. Because I thought I'd made like 10,000 pairs of earrings, and the pricing was going down, and I thought this isn't fun anymore. I'd go out to my art studio.
Really good point. You brought up a really good point, Nancy, and that's the fact that that's a big word, none of us, but many of us don't think about the competitor that's around the corner that we haven't even thought of yet.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, I think that we can't go along on, wow, everything is blissfully great, and this will continue as is, when somebody can just open up a block away or even a world away and give us competition. And it's something we don't even think about. And I believe that's exactly what happened to a lot of businesses in the pandemic. For example, take restaurants. Some of them completely closed and aren't coming back, and others did this unbelievable pivot and was very successful at, their takeouts and their delivery and things like that. So I just think that we need to be prepared for what's coming around the corner that we can't even see. And I'm not sure how you prepare for that. Do you have any suggestions?
I think that what we went through last year was so unexpected. And we initially thought, well, we're going to be shut down for a month, maybe 2 months. I can ride out 2 months. But we didn't see at the long-term implications. And I think some people early on that they looked at it and they thought, okay, here's, they didn't see it as a problem, but they saw the opportunity. I mean, and I'm going to use the restaurants as an example. So the town that I live in, San Carlos, is a really nice downtown area. And what they did is they closed down 2 blocks or 3 blocks and turned it into only for pedestrians to walk through. They allowed the restaurants to expand out into the streets. And it was interesting. They were sort of competing with each other, who could have the nicest outdoor space. So they made a big investment in the outdoor space. And what I find interesting is everybody really likes it. And we don't want it to end. We want them to keep that. Because now we've come out of this, we have a choice. We can choose to dine outside, or we can choose to dine inside. And not every restaurant sort of really rose to the occasion right away. The ones that, leaned into it initially, they built up their following. The other ones kind of came along, some, dragged their feet a little bit about it. But now kind of that's like the new normal now for this downtown dining experience. And I think about it,
that's
friends.
Great when you have a climate that suggests that you can do that. But of course, you can't do that in the Northeast, or you can't do that in the
right.
Central Plains or places like that. But certainly California, Florida, maybe parts of Louisiana, et cetera. You can do that. But it's true. I mean, it's just like when I started 13, 14 years ago with the Spunky Old Broad, I was one of the only people who worked with women 50 plus. Now there's a bunch of people doing that. So I've shifted over to my media training, because that's something that a lot of people are not in. They don't understand how to do it. and there's much less competition there. So it's just interesting that there's things that come out of nowhere that you have to be prepared for. But you also say that values, if you use your values as a guiding force,
Yes.
that is a big, big help. So what do you mean by that, and how do people use their values?
Well, I think it really looking at what are your core underpinnings? What has you standing in your own integrity, and what is really important to you. Some people look at, I want to be able to do something where I want to care for my family. I want to be, I believe, I worked for a large corporation for a while, and one of the main values there was always to tell the truth. And sometimes it's hard to tell the truth because
It's very hard to tell the truth.
You want to
Very
soften it, right?
Yes, yes.
And there it was, we're better off to know kind of what's in this business context. We want to know what's really going on so we can make the best decision to move forward. And I think oftentimes the hardest person to tell the truth to is ourselves about what's really going on and what am I really good at? What are my gifts that I can bring forward? And where do I need to have a support system of the people that they're good at the things that I'm not good at, and I need them on my team so I can move forward. Like, you don't want me to do your book, Gail. I'm just saying. that's not my deal. I need somebody to handle that part of my business.
Well, I agree with you, Nancy, in terms of, although sometimes I wonder if people really want to hear the truth. Sometimes when companies come out and say something, I wonder if the public is saying, I wonder if there's an ulterior motive behind this, because they've been so blasted with things that aren't true that
Yes.
I think there are people who don't really often believe when someone comes out and says, yeah, it really is true, So, that's something to think about. But I know change is a big factor in what you do. What do you see is the most significant response to change that you have seen from the people that you work with?
When it is unexpected and not wanted, the first reaction is, ugh, why me?
Yeah, why did I get singled down to you? Yeah, not.
Why did I get laid off? Why, why me? Why did this happen to me? People can fall into that place, and I think that's a natural reaction when it's loss. And then there has to kind of go through sort of this grieving process for how your life used to be. And, when I think, and I tied into my own experience, and I've seen this in other people, when I got to the point where I realized that my marriage wasn't going to work anymore. And I wallowed in that for a while. And I needed to, but you can't do it for too long. I think it's just natural to go, ugh, why did this happen? But then to sort of pick at, okay, well, what's next? This has come to its logical end. And then people can open up to look at what's possible. And I don't ever let people stay down for very long, because it's not useful. I mean, sure, take a week, eat a lot of ice cream, eat a lot of pasta. Okay, now let's move on. Right.
Well, they said that with this pandemic, women have really lost their place in the business world. Many of them have resigned from jobs because of childcare.
Right.
Some have had their positions eliminated and not restored. And others who are in business have just not been able to weather the storm. So if you were advising women who are going into their business today, going into their own business, or are just floating along until they can figure out how to make it profitable, what suggestions do you have for them?
I think to look at flexible scheduling, to really look at how you can work a more non-traditional day is the first thing. Because even though we're in 2021, the reality is, when it comes to managing the family situation, the homestead, if you will, women are taking the lead. We're still taking the lead at home, and then we're still really, what was that old thing? I can bring home the bacon and fry it up in a pan.
Exactly right.
Right. we're still stuck in this place. And so looking at how can the schedule be flexible, and I think it's really important to take the lead with their partners around, hey, we're in this together, and
I was
being
just going
able
to
to
say,
tap
yeah.
into each other's capabilities and skills. I can't imagine like having to manage uh, working full time, having to wanting your kids to be able to continue to advance through school, and then have time for enjoyment for the whole family.
Well, that's why I was going to say I was so fortunate because my husband was probably better than a 50% contributor to the home. And so he really made things a lot easier for me because I was working god awful long days. You know, I would leave early and come back late. But he managed the child care, and I mean, he worked all the time, but he just made it possible. So I think the partner part of it is so important.
Hmm.
And these women who are alone, very often, I think they might be benefited by joining other women in the same situation and helping each other out. For example, just uh, doing it in a way that uh, they can babysit for each other, or they can
Right.
help homeschool, or whatever it happens to be. But anyway, we're coming to the end of our show. We've got about 5 minutes left, Nancy, and I want to make sure we get everything in for you. So tell people, where they can find you. I don't know if you have a gift for anybody. If you do, please tell them. What is the best way to handle reaching you and so forth. So what are all your particulars?
Okay. Well, my first off, my website is nancygiere.com, and it's spelled Giere. And my email is easy because you just put a Nancy at in front of that. And if people want to text me or pick up the phone and call me, that's 414-315-9809. And a lot
Fantastic.
of and a lot of what's been happening in my work, which connects into change, is people wanting to move from a traditional platform to the online world. And I do have, if people go to my website, they can opt in and they can get a free gift that will help them kind of navigate if the part of their online business that they're really interested in moving in is creating online courses. I have a whole outline of exactly how you can do that and do it successfully.
Fantastic. Well, remember, folks, it's Nancy Giere, but it's Giere. So remember how to spell it, because that's how you're going to find her online. You're going to find her on the web. You're going to find her through email, nancy@nancygiere.com. So many things. So we haven't really finished how you bring your comedy and your storytelling
Oh,
into your work. How do you do that, Nancy?
well, I think you have to be able to find the humor in a daily living, because if you can't see the humor in what's going on around you, life can be quite dull. And I will never forget going into the grocery store this is pandemic time. The day after it was announced, everybody's like, "Oh my God, I got to go and I got to stock up on everything." I walked in, and of course, I'm Italian, so I needed to get some pasta. The only pasta in the aisle was made from chickpeas. And at that
Oh my
moment,
God.
I knew, oh boy, we're in trouble. I wasn't worried about paper towels or toilet paper, but if I can't get my pasta, what's going to happen? And I had to stop and laugh and think, well, can I get flour or can I make it? I mean, my whole mind just kind of went, and then I just went, well, you're just going to have to ride this out and see what happens. But I just look to try to, I just somehow, just in conversation with people, things will strike me funny. I work to lighten the mood, because I think when you can sort of lighten the mood, help people to laugh a little bit, then people are open to moving in a new direction.
Well, someone like you is someone that's great to have in their back pocket for training and for online courses, and for just how to navigate change in their businesses and so forth. I can't thank you enough, Nancy, for being with us today. I mean, it has just been a delight connecting with you again, and also
Yes.
finding out, a little bit about what you're doing now and how life is affecting you, and the fact that you've gone from coast to coast, and that you have a little wiener dog. They are
I
so
do.
they are so adorable, and there's nothing like having a pet to get you through the tough times. There's no question about it.
Absolutely.
And I would think that your dog would be small enough that you'd be able to take him on flights.
Well, but I was concerned about bringing her to Florida because I was worried that she might attract alligators and then I would lose my
Oh
little.
well, yeah, yeah. You'd have to keep her on a leash. I used to
Yeah.
fly my Yorkie every month for 11 years from Florida to California. It was amazing, just amazing. But anyway, it was just delightful talking with you. I hope everybody goes to your website, finds out a lot about you, and just keeps you in their prayers. Thank you so much for being with us, Nancy.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Women in Business. I hope you enjoyed today's show. And if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like me to have as a guest, just email me at gailcarson13@gmail.com. Be sure to check out www.sob6tips.com. And in the meantime, go to www.spunkyoldbroad.com to see the resources I have for you.